Hey there, my name is Robert and I'm the editor-in-chief of UnGeek, a media site that covers all things geek and gaming. Now, as someone who's part of the media, we usually try to keep tabs on the trends that are happening both locally and globally. And through the years of reporting the news and creating content, we've had the privilege of seeing the community and the industry grow. Today, I'm here to share with you a little bit more insight on how the landscape of the Philippine gaming industry is at present. Overall, if you were to ask me to describe it, I would say that it's young, but it is filled with points of opportunity. In that light, the Philippines will definitely have similarities with the industries that you're familiar with. So for this talk, I'll be focusing more on what sets the Philippines apart. Let's start off with the market. Now, I'm not going to list down every known market segment that the country has. However, there are two segments in my opinion that are worth talking about. First, you have the aged hardcore gamer. These are your group of gamers who grew up with the industry and fell in love with it. So they typically fall under the age range of around late 20s to late 30s. The most interesting thing about this audience is that for those who are part of this segment and belong to the AB upper C demographic, these are your passionate spenders. They're inclined to buy merch, special or even collector's editions of games, in-game cosmetics, and the like. They're willing to pay because they're at a point in their life where they can finally have the personal capacity to spend without having to rely on allowance, or without having to explain themselves to people who had negative views on gaming, which was something that was widespread during the 90s. But because they're willing to pay, they in turn expect quality. Nostalgia is also a big factor for them because it allows them to relive a memory or to make up for something that they regret not having experienced. Take for example the release of the Nintendo Classic Mini. When news of this first broke out, there were many who showed interest in the console, and many who posted about it in social media. After its release, various console brands followed suit like PlayStation and Sega, who released mini versions of their own Gen 1 consoles. Imagine how many people were open to buying such an item, even if the games it had were severely limited. But because the items look and feel were of an acceptable quality and played on the power of nostalgia, it got support from this segment of the market. The next segment is one that consists of a huge chunk of the gaming audience, which I call the new social gamer. These are the people who are more part of the mainstream market and have newly been exposed to gaming. This segment values social rewards like interaction and acknowledgement, and their gaming device of choice is mobile. It's a segment that's gotten into games because 1. Gaming has gone social. Majority of the Philippines is on Facebook, and it's a platform that they open multiple times every day. So when they see all this gaming content on Facebook because of streaming, they get exposed and they get curious. And even more so, point number 2, they start seeing mainstream personalities, their idols, getting into gaming as well. Some of them revealing that they've always been gamers. Some of them even have their own streaming channels on FB. Because it's so widespread, it makes them more inclined to try games out, especially if it's on mobile. In fact, it's due to the developments of mobile that makes this market primed for trial. Because almost everybody has mobile phones, with a big percentage of those people having smartphones, majority of these people have internet, and year on year mobile downloads and spending are on the uptrend. They will also most likely have phones that can play demanding games because good mobile tech has become very affordable. You have 200 to 300 USD phones that are able to play games like Call of Duty Mobile. So since these tools are readily available, it's easy for them to play with others. It's easy to play with their favorite streaming personality when they want to play with viewers. For this market, because the barriers to trial are so low, gaining the social rewards they want is something that's always within reach. So that's what's unique about the Philippine gaming industry from a B2C perspective. Now let's take a look at things from a B2B perspective. Here are the pillars of the local industry. You have the esports scene, streaming, game development, game licensing and distribution, and media. Once again, I'm sure these pillars exist for your respective home industries as well. However, the nuances and significance to the industry may differ. So allow me to describe to you how each pillar factors into the industry. Esports. At the base of it, it's about tournaments, winning matches, staking a claim in the local, regional, global tournament. That makes sense. But in my opinion, esports brings one more very important aspect to the industry. It empowers the community. It brings people together. The Philippines is known to be very nationalistic, and the concept of Pinoy pride is one that many Filipinos rally under. It plays to the competitive nature of Filipinos as well. So when Filipino teams compete in big tournaments, not only does the gaming community come together in support, but that also plays a big part in bringing credibility to the industry in the eyes of the mainstream audience. An example of this would be last year's SEA Games, where news of the Philippine national team competing in the first esports segment of the SEA Games spread like wildfire and gained widespread support amongst the public. This led to even more eyes on the event, more than the usual gaming community. Aside from that, there have been a number of non-endemic brands that have started to venture into this space as well. Streaming. While it's one of the newer pillars of the industry, it's actually a huge contributor to the growth of the Philippine gaming scene. Something we touched on earlier while discussing the market segments, streaming has actually made interactions easier between members of the community. It connects personalities to their fans in a closer way, and it encourages trial to the audience, especially when they can play the game with their idols. The rise of Mobile Legends is a great example of streaming's effectiveness. It's a great multiplayer game which gives you the chance to interact with the streamers when they do need people to play with. They can talk tips with you or even do giveaways with their community, which led to it being one of the most watched games on Facebook. Game development. Game development constantly highlights Filipino talent. Whether it's through the creation of a whole new game or through the development of graphical assets, level designs, and more. Game dev has been opening many doors for the business since way back when. Constant game jams have also grown the segment throughout the years, bringing more and more creative minds into the industry. Game devs are also excellent contacts when it comes to adding localized relevance to creative ideas. Game licensing and distribution. This pillar has been around for quite some time. Ragnarok Online Philippines was actually born from this and has become one of the most popular MMORPGs in the country. While business-wise their benefit seems obvious, one thing distributors in the Philippines do very well is creating or engaging a community. Some people who came from this pillar are also responsible for the excellent performance of games like Perfect World and MU Origin 2 in the Google Play Store's top grossing charts. Media. Finally, we have the media. Especially in the local scene, the media helps by providing searchable resources to the public, especially when it comes to promotions and news. So when it comes to creating campaigns, that provides for a holistic impact to the public. Media acts as a great support for when people start searching for the product or topic in question. It helps disseminate information, especially as social media posts prove to be difficult when it comes to leaving a search footprint. These 5 pillars have their own benefits when it comes to the Philippine gaming industry. But one thing that I can tell you for sure is that the best results are achieved when multiple pillars are tapped so that the audience is engaged in multiple fronts. I hope this small snapshot has helped you in understanding the business landscape of gaming in the Philippines and how each part of the industry brings something to the table when it comes to connecting with the audience. As I close, I leave you with one final insight. There is no magic bullet or magic approach when it comes to the industry. It always pays off to get context and insight, especially when you're trying to engage a specific audience. Depending on the business objective and or the nature of the product and service that you're working with, it's always best for you to find out the nuances of the target market first before you determine the best approach. And should you ever find yourself feeling lost, all you need to do is to reach out to us and take the time. Thank you. Speaking of game dev, here to tell you about the growth of games development in the Philippines, please welcome from Secret 6, Mr. Ronald Schaffner.